you wouldn't wake up excited the next morning if you remembered how painful all the previous stuff was.
Dude, it's true. I actually think that's like a really important thing is to be able to just move on, like reset, move on to the next thing.
Yeah, dude, things just don't bother me.
Yeah.
Like, I got effed on something pretty hardcore last Friday at like 9 a.m. I got a phone call that just punched me in the face. And I like told the person, like, this is the impact of what you're doing. I want to make sure you're cognizant of that and you're okay with the impact that you're having. And they said yes. And I said, okay, fine. Like, as long as you're aware, this is a business relationship and we're going to move on. And then we like got dinner this week and it was like fine. And
Yeah.
like somebody else is going to go do the thing that I wanted that person to do. You know what I mean? I just like found someone else, whatever. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I had an incident, I don't know, 2 months and a half ago or so, where I did something to somebody else. Like inadvertently, it wasn't an intentional thing, but I knew that I had broken someone's trust, which bothered me a ton. But I just got on and was like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to do better next time. This thing really bothered me for about 48 hours. And then I just had to let it go. Right. And I think it's fine now. Like, we're cool, but it's just, it's one of those things where like that is, yeah, it's like I messed up in that case. There's just so many things you're managing and so many things you're trying to do where like there are mistakes that I make, and I feel like the more I manage, the more likely that is to happen, right? And then obviously people do things that are hurtful to me in some way, or not even directly to me, but just like impacts the business. This thing that
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Jeremiah, this is juicy. Can you tell the story? What did you do?
it's not like something immoral or unethical or something like that. It was just like I didn't handle a situation the best, like the way that I should have, and I negatively impacted a friend, and that was the situation, right? So, and at the end of the day, it all worked out, but yeah, still, like I definitely felt responsibility for not having done that to the best of my ability.
Rashad, did you say that you went to lunch with someone that directly fucked you on Friday?
Yeah, dinner.
You went, like, was it like what's
Directly. Not
what?
not even indirectly. Like millions of dollars directly. Yeah, yeah. On Friday. And then we got dinner on Wednesday.
So I'm curious, like, what's your calculation on like maintaining like a quote unquote like friendship? Like what was like your calculus?
Yeah, I think like my view on these situations is like that person has not told me what are the total sets of things that they were dealing with that led to that decision. But because as soon as they did the thing, I responded with, here's the impact, here's what is going to happen next, here's how it's going to play out. Are you okay with that? And he said, yes, I understand. And here's the decision I have to make. Like, the only way to rationalize all of those things put together is there's a different set of pressures that he is unable to share with me at this moment. And so it's just like you just can't take it personally. I understand everything is personal in some regards, but I was like, look, as long as you're making this decision eyes wide open and it is having this like literally multi-million dollar impact, um, and you're aware of that, like, okay, like I have given you the information you need to continue to like decide how to interact in this relationship. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to interact with in this relationship, and now I'm just not going to trust you in those contexts anymore because I know you have a different set of pressures that you're unable to share with me. At least right now, you're unable to share with me. Maybe later you'll be able to share with me. Like, just don't stab me in the back. Punch me in the face. And as long as you punch me in the face, like we can be totally great.
I agree with that. I hate worse than stab in the back is when someone like pretends like they're punching you in the face, but then like and then stab you in the back. Like they almost like because of their own conscience, they're like, oh, I'm gonna like do this like thing and like tell them, but like they don't. I mean, it happened to me, but they don't tell you like the whole thing. And it's like you probably should have just never told me anything because like this was you. This is you like coping for your conscience.
Exactly. So that's why I like don't mind. Some of the people who I've ended up closest with are the people who I have had direct competition with, but as long as they were direct with me, and then at some point later they tell me what their other pressures. Actually, I have a really good example that I can share. I had a prior boss who, like, in some way, like totally reamed me one day, right? It set me down the best possible path because that's like basically when I decided to quit, and then I started Fermat and all this sort of stuff, right? I was so unhappy, but I still like kept in touch with them. And then I found out later, like 2.5 years later, what was going on for them that led to the thing that they did. And I was like, that makes total sense, right? And you were direct with me when you did the thing, and then, like, and so it's like fine. And now I like try to keep up with them. I text them. They're like one of my most frequent references whenever I'm fundraising, all this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, like, yeah, punch me in the face, don't stab me in the back.
Yeah, I think this comes back to, what happened with Jeremiah. It sounds like it was something that was acute and, required you to make a decision on a short time frame. And it's easy to sometimes make the wrong decision, to not have all of the resources that you need in order to make the right decision. And I think the foundation of, continuing to play a game with someone and trade over a long time frame is trust, right? You need to be able to trust that person in order to continue doing business with them. But that's the sort of rationalization for shorter timeframes has to be that, there were these pressures over a short time frame that forced the wrong decision. But over a longer time frame, I can actually trust that person and continue to transact with them, right? Because if you think about the rationalization based on the environment that that person's in, that can be pulled all the way through to the most dysfunctional members of society, right? People did that with like Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killers. They go, oh, well, they experienced all these, hardships in their life. So of course they were corrupted and they performed badly, but over long time frames, they can't be trusted either. It's not there was something acute that disturbed their ability to make decisions properly. Over longer time frames, they just can't act properly either. So yeah, I think that might be at the core of this, is that if somebody's punching you in the face, at least you can trust them, right? Because there's a calculation happening there that's rational, that over a longer time frame with a different set of circumstances, you can interact with them, engage with them. But like on that short time frame, because of whatever circumstances, it played out a different way, right?
Yeah. I mean, family relationships are like this, right? Like I think for the most part, the people who have caused me the most pain in my life and who I've caused the most pain are family members, right? There's just like this thing where it's like the closer you are to somebody, the more time you interact with somebody, the deeper the connection you have with them, the more real you are, actually, I think, in some ways. And so when you have those moments of not being able to cope with whatever those stresses are, it oftentimes comes out. Or it's more likely to come out, I should say, in those types of relationships. I mean, there's a balance there, right? There's also, like, on the flip side, if you don't care at all about somebody, it's easier to do harm to them. But I do think there's like it can almost be a sign of like there's actually like a depth and a trust in this relationship, depending on what the specific incident is.
Guys, can I ask you a really spicy question? I don't know what's on the agenda, Jack, but I had a topic because I got an email from another ecom SaaS founder. I won't name the person, but the exact question was, what is it like building off Shopify? And I guess I wonder, when you guys think about the calculus about on Shopify versus off Shopify, how do you think about that trade?
I've never been on Shopify.
Oh, you've never built it. Oh yeah, your app lives entirely on its own. It doesn't matter. You don't care.
I want us to be at least partially on Shopify. I really, really want the distribution through Shopify to be able to solve problems for Shopify users right next to them, right? To put that tool in their, like, at their disposal, at arm's reach away from them. But there are costs as well. There's a trade-off, right?
Yeah. Do you guys have a Shopify app at all? No.
Okay.
No.
That's always the thing. I mean, like for us, like the distribution of our Chrome extension has always been like really, really good. And so naturally it's like, oh, like a lot of our customers are Shopify brands. Like a Shopify app would be like potentially good distribution. And I feel like our like space is probably like less competitive than like reviews or something. I've just never seen like a really meaningful like product tie-in, and I didn't want to build something like just for distribution, really. But there's a reason for us to have it in like the near future, so it might happen.
I was gonna say that too. I think it's got to be based on the product tie-in. Like, to me, it's not worth the hassle for distribution and all the pieces that come with that, right? Like you've got to use Shopify billing, you've got to do like all kinds of things if you actually want to get distribution through Shopify. Maintenance of APIs that are constantly changing. It's funny. I love this question. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that you guys are not even dealing with that right now. And so you probably don't have any commerce integrations, right?
None.
Yeah.
Wait, Jeremiah, what's your take? Like, what are you going to take no somewhere else?
Obviously, on a personal level, I worked in the WooCommerce ecosystem for a long time, so I've got some experience in that ecosystem. Started building Shopify apps, well, really one app in 2020, and so got a little bit of taste of that ecosystem. And one thing that immediately struck me was that I didn't feel like the distribution through the App Store was nearly as good on Shopify as it was on WooCommerce, but the flip side of that is you could make more money on the users that you're acquiring through Shopify than you can in something like WooCommerce. But it became pretty evident for the problem we were solving, the App Store wasn't going to be a big driver of revenue for us. There were, at the time, basically 2 other apps that were doing post-purchase surveys. So, I mean, we're one of 3, a couple others. But anyway, we were right up there near the top. And it was, I mean, I don't know, in that time that we weren't actively promoting it, it was, I think we got to like 3,000 MRR on like a $20 and $45 a month plan, and the App Store 300 users, including the free version. And most of that, just because I could see who was signing up, was because of agencies and stuff. It wasn't even through the App Store. So immediately for me, I kind of like, I had, before we even fully launched what is now No, I had an expectation that the App Store wasn't going to be the main driver of business for us. So Stamped has direct integration with WooCommerce, with BigCommerce, with a couple of other tools. They've actually shut down most of the other ones. So it's basically just BigCommerce.
Salesforce?
No Salesforce, yeah. But BigCommerce, WooCommerce, and Shopify. And then on the No side, we basically built a WooCommerce plugin extension. So you can basically download that and you just enter like your API key and your account ID, and it sets everything up for you. Which is pretty easy to do. I mean, I think I paid somebody $1,000 to kind of build out the core version of it, and then we just have that as something that you download and install on your site. And then for BigCommerce, we just have instructions on adding it. So we have 100 to 200 brands probably that are using our BigCommerce, WooCommerce, and then custom implementations. And those are they're all paid. You have to be on a paid plan to do that. So
Totally. And then what do they say once they start using it?
In terms of like, what do they say about the product?
Yeah. Are they like, oh my God, thank you?
I mean, they like it. I think the reality is those ecosystems, the apps ecosystems are much less developed than the Shopify ecosystem. Like I talked to BigCommerce, they, and whoever it was I talked to, I forget, it's been a couple of years. She was great, but she was like, hey, how many BigCommerce users do you have now? I was like, I think we have 11, from what I could tell based on the data that was coming in. And she was like, yeah, I wouldn't even integrate, honestly. She was like, then you're gonna have to pay us. Like you've got API stuff you got to maintain. You've got to pay us a percentage rev share on those. Like there's a bunch of things. Whereas if somebody just self sets up using a script, you're good to go. So we've kind of switched to, on the No side, that's our strategy. We basically have Shopify, so we're all in on Shopify, and we have a self-install version. And then Stamped, we're migrating to a similar sort of scenario over time. We're not there yet, but eventually we're going to end up in a similar space, I think, where it's basically like all in on Shopify plus a custom implementation. And ideally, the custom implementation is easy, right? The more work you put into making that easy, the better it is across all platforms. But I would say like building fully custom integration for each platform just doesn't seem like it's worth the hassle in that context.
Yeah, we're like roughly all self-install everywhere, actually.
Yeah, I mean, with what you do, it's like it's not like for us, you're just adding a script to a page basically, and then all the work is happening inside our UI. Very different from what you have to do.
Yeah. I will tell you that the difference between a Shopify customer and a non-Shopify customer is that a Shopify customer is like looking for the next best alternative at 1/10 of the price. And I mean, by the way, I don't think any of these people are shy about saying that. It's like publicly on Twitter what they say. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything like different than what they're saying. And everybody else is like dude, thank you. Thank you for letting me pay you $500,000 a year. And I'm like, like the thing that it makes me think is like, where do you think builders are going to build?
Yeah. I just think that, well, I think we talked about this a little bit last time. I do think the price point at which you're selling matters a lot, because if you don't have, we don't allow free on those other plans. It's just too much hassle, right? So
Totally.
you can have a free version. Well, actually, we don't do free anymore. But anyway, $19 a month. We're not going to do a $19 a month plan on any of those other platforms because it's just too much hassle. It's not worth all of the effort. I wouldn't even like go after those customers on like, say, sub $1,000 a month plan. I would need, like, for me to actively pursue customers on those platforms, I would need to know I can make at least five figures, maybe six per customer to actually like invest in those platforms.
Are you saying for building an individual integration with each one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was just like, because
yeah, sorry, not to like, yeah, if you want to self-install, whatever.
Yeah,
yeah,
because like freemium generally, I like Patrick Campbell is a really good article on like choosing freemium versus not choosing freemium, and like the number one sort of like lever in like making that decision is always TAM.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for like self-install and all that kind of stuff, it's like those are like the times in which like free is, and like where like the TAM could be like massive,
Yep.
In which like freemium has like whatever, like the K factor on it, it actually like, you know, nets out to make sense and stuff like that.
And that's the thing, is like the TAM in Shopify is just so much bigger than all the other platforms. So, because really what you're talking about, if you're selling e-com enablement software and you're trying to make more than $20 a month on it, your TAM is really stores that do say $1 million a year plus in revenue, and most of those are on Shopify, or the largest number, the largest the largest stores are not on Shopify, but the largest number of stores doing that kind of revenue are on Shopify.
I think all of these things are just like, it's like everything's always priced into the market. It's like when you build on Shopify, you benefit from the early adopter curve. And then on the other side of that, you are now like a victim of the early adopter like
Correct.
So it's like,
Correct.
At the end of the day, it's all just doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's all every sport has like its pros and cons, and you're in the game that you're in, and yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I think the cost of distribution is an interesting question because it affects all of the businesses that we serve with our businesses as well. Because by distribution, we're talking about penetration, some amount of incremental new business. Otherwise, if it was all cannibalization of revenue that you would already have otherwise achieved, you would never do it, right? Connecting to customers at a cost. All of the businesses we serve incur these costs, and significantly left, right, and center, like literally everywhere. Paid advertising is an additional cost of unit profitability. If you only have, 100 units to sell and you're selling through them at a decent rate without advertising, cut the advertising cost, you'll sell through it all. Sales and promotional offers, any offsets to revenue. Everyone runs sales because they work. Brands regularly, if not constantly, trade unit profitability for a higher volume of sales, right? The promotional offer promotes the likelihood of the sale, right? And selling on marketplaces like Amazon is basically the direct consumer equivalent of the Shopify App Store. All of the costs associated with selling on Amazon, there's just like a never-ending list, right? I had to do the same thing with my first brand. We sold through splice.com and sounds.com, which are like marketplaces for audio people, at a way lower cost than through our Shopify store. So the question at the end of the day, because we're incurring these costs all of the time, is the benefit worth the cost, right?
Totally.
And for a lot of businesses on the Shopify App Store, it tends to be, right?
Totally. I totally agree.
A couple of weeks ago, we spoke about Sean from the Ridge's request. I don't know how to give your SaaS brand the most confusing name. Let's see if I can find it here. How to choose the most confusing name for your startup. We need the experts from Foreplay and Format to weigh in. And you know what? I'm going to Uno reverse card Sean. I love my Ridge wallet, but I have no idea how Ridge relates to wallets. But maybe he's got a point. It's not immediately recognizable, Foreplay, Format. But I think that for Foreplay at least, that clarity about what the brand does isn't always in the name, right? It's in some combination of a slogan or a problem statement or a quickly reached light bulb moment after a conversation or getting your hands on it and using the product. But I was super interested for you, Rishab. What is it for Format? What's the elevator pitch that makes it click?
Well, yeah. The actual reason, there's two reasons why I named it Format. The first one was, I'm a physicist, and in physics there's this like thing called the principle of least action. And so Fermat's principle, which is like light refracting, when it goes from like air to water, it bends. And so it turns out that that bent pathway is actually the shortest path between point A and point B. And so the whole idea was like the shortest path to commerce, or the least action path to commerce. And so named it after the guy. That's it.
Let's say I own an e-commerce store and I'm thinking about Fermat. I've heard good things about Fermat. My friends are using Fermat. What's the elevator pitch? Why would I use Fermat?
Oh, what does the company actually do?
Yeah.
Oh, like the actual elevator pitch is just that today you send all your traffic to one website, but you have a bunch of different creatives with a bunch of different angles that are trying to attract people for different reasons, but somehow you still send them to one website, which is like insane because like you don't use one ad. And so instead of sending them to one website, send them to a site that is actually customized to the ad, right? Just like the same reason you have creative diversity, you need to have website diversity. The reason for the product or the company is like not rocket science. Like it's like kind of turns out different people like different things for different reasons. Like that's it. So, and the same person likes the one thing in different contexts for different reasons. That's it. That's like the entire premise of the company.
You know what? I
And
think this is a pain point that pretty much every founder can understand, because they're constantly being told by experts, you need to update your website. You need to update your website. The website will get updated, I don't know, it'll take like 1 to 3 months every year, or 2 years, 3 years. And then someone else comes along and says, hey, you need to update your website. So I imagine it can feel like a task with no light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I feel like that's something that founders can probably really connect with.
yeah. I mean, once I talk to people, it's not it's not rocket science, but
Well, and just thinking about like the cost of your paid ads, like for these brands that are running like the D2C native brands, your product is probably your biggest line item. The actual like cost, not always actually, though. I think some people spend more on ads than they do on the actual like getting the
I
product.
think most people spend way more on ads than COGS.
Yeah. It's true, actually. Yeah, because typically you're looking at your COGS are ideally sub 20%, and you might be spending 30, 40, 50% on paid ads. So yeah, I think it's just like when you look at that line item, it's such a massive line item. And the reality is, like, for most people, especially if you're outsourcing manufacturing, your COGS are so well optimized, you don't have much room to actually make a change there. There's probably way more optimization on that 40% of ad spend, or whatever that number is, that you can actually tackle. So yeah, I think like the pain that these brands are feeling and the problem that you're trying to solve with that, I think it's
yeah. Also, Sean is yanking, okay, on Twitter, which is what he like professionally does, because let me show you how you can know that. This guy, okay, literally last year was texting me ideas for how to pitch Fermat, okay? So he's just yanking, which I love about him, which is why when he posted that, I said like, dude, come on and explain Ridge, right? So yeah.
Side note, we should bring Sean on, actually, and have him everything he hates about SAAS.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, like, he's got a lot of content about how he hates SaaS.
Yeah.
He really does. Which is for a guy who loves, like, I can tell he loves business and capitalism, and actually, yeah, we should bring him on, because I do want to ask him. I'm like, dude, for how much you love capitalism, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't reconcile the like dislike of SaaS and the love for capitalism.
Well, let's be real. Like, after he's done with Ridge, I can almost, like, I feel like he'll start a SaaS company. Like, that is like the villain arc, you know?
That's
You're like, there's like, what's the highest margin business I could start?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
How about you, Jeremiah? What's the elevator pitch for No and Stamped?
To be honest, working a little bit on that. Because we're kind of especially on the stamp side, really reorienting the entire business. But ultimately, the idea is that we're taking feedback from customers, surveys, reviews, all of that. We're pairing it with customer engagement points, and we're actually giving just better insight into what a customer is going to be willing to do at any given point in time. That's the idea. I mean, a very simple example, let's say we send somebody a review request. We're going to time it based on when we think that person's most likely to actually leave a review. That's a very high intent moment. So what other high intent things that we think they're likely to engage with can we put in front of them at that point in time? And so that's really what we're working on. So the exact elevator pitch, I haven't actually identified what that will be, but ultimately that's the direction we're going.
I sort of don't think you need one, right? This is the sort of thing people are looking for with such incredibly high levels of intent, right? The reality of Rashad and Famat is that you do kind of have to tell them, hey, you should probably make some space in your budget to improve your website. And not all of your ad performance is going to come from what your ads look like, right? I mean, so such a small part of it actually might come from your media. Sure, it starts with your media and it starts with your product, maybe. But if they're coming to a website that takes, 10 seconds to load, then they're going to back out and they're going to carry on watching funny cat videos on Instagram, right? So I think it's interesting. People are looking for post-purchase surveys. People are looking for review apps, right? And they want one that's better, right? And so I think yours has very high intent on the way into using your products as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That's one of the beautiful things about reviews being a product now that I can sell, because reviews is it's basically considered table stakes. If you go and look at like what is the number one app category that people install on their Shopify site, it's a reviews app. Surveys is not like that. It's high intent for sure, but it's high intent for a very small subset of the industry. Whereas, I mean, and even in larger brands, it's still a fairly small subset that are actually actively using surveys. So yeah, going back to the TAM conversation, if we can orient everything about how do we make reviews actually meaningful to your business, not just like some widget you show a number of reviews on, then it becomes a really interesting space to operate in.
It's interesting to me, in my experience with brands, the number one thing I would hear all the time is, what's a better way to collect reviews? What's a better way to understand where our customers are coming from? Right? And they might go down that path with Triple Whale, with, Google Analytics, and try and, discover where it is through attribution, through, a bunch of different very technical solutions to finding out where their customers are coming from. And then they often just end with, can we just ask them a question? Can we just ask them where they came from? Right? It's the start, and sometimes it's, the end as well. How about you, Zach? I've never asked you, what's the elevator pitch for Foreplay?
I mean, I started the company because I wanted Pinterest, but for advertising, just for myself. And like, that was our first H1 on the website, which is Pinterest for ads. Essentially, I had a brand that I was running, and then we had a product pop off for a reason, which is actually a reason maybe you should get no. I'm going to go on a side quest here. We had this product, and it just started absolutely ripping, and it was wall art, and it was like a 3-panel piece of wall art on one side, and it was all black and white sketched. One was like 2 hands holding, then it was like a pinky promise, and in the middle it just said love in cursive. And this thing absolutely ripped, and like we could not figure out why, but it was like one ad, one product, and like it completely changed the business. And so that's where I started being like to the team, okay, everybody in the team, no matter what your position, you have to come with like 5 ad ideas on our Friday call. And everyone would bring like these ad library links or screenshots, and like nothing got done with them. And that's where I was like, oh, like we should just have like Pinterest for this. But funny enough, after like maybe 4 or 5 months of this product, like just continuously like being our best seller, a single image ad of this product worked the best. And I still couldn't figure out why. Like, I don't know, people like love. I guess I found like a good segment in Facebook ads. What I found out was that it was a Rorschach test that made an incredible sized TAM with 2 specific sub niches that were like overrepresented, and you only saw it if you were part of those sub niches. The first one was gay men. So gay men in this photo saw 2 man's hands like holding, and they're like, I've never seen like gay art before.
No fucking way.
But straight people just saw a woman's hand and a man's hand. So then I found that through like comments and stuff. Like I started looking through our ad comments being like, oh, like pride art, this is so cool. It's like tasteful, all this type of shit. And then another reason why I found that is that we had a church buy it. And then when they received the photo, they tried to return it because they're like, we got this photo and then someone just saw two man's hands and like, we didn't realize this was gay art. The other sub niche was interracial couples. And because it was like black and white sketched, and like one of them was lighter, they're like, it's a white hand and a black hand. And so like the conversion and engagement on interracial couples and gay couples was huge, but then like the larger TAM of just like normal people just saw, or like normal relationships, like standard relationships, just saw a man's hand and a woman's hand. And if I had if I had Noah at that time, I might have got to that quicker and have been like, let's do more gay art, let's do more interracial art or something. But
yeah, in terms of like cross-selling to those categories of people too. Like,
that was the first time that I felt like, oh, like a single ad can completely transform your business. And that's what like led me down to be like, hey, we need to do a bunch of research. We need consistent ideas. And
oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, that is the crazy. That's a great story. I can't believe I've never heard that story before. That's a great story. Oh my God.
It was a long time ago, but yeah, no, it was wild. Yeah, I ended up selling the business and the product's still up there. We actually ended up getting a cease and desist for it because apparently it was like stolen artwork. So we ended up getting it remade, but yeah.
Wow.
But our elevator pitch is like one ad can significantly transform your business. I think the thing that's changed since when I started Foreplay to now is that like the longevity of that ad is shorter, but you still need those bumps. And if anything, like the need for Foreplay has increased because the frequency in which you need those bumps just like kind of increases with like creative burnout and stuff like that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But this is true for all marketing. All marketing is like inflection driven. It's not really like a steady drumbeat. Like I've never seen anybody like do marketing like this. It's always like, like this basically. Like you have like a moment and then you try to keep momentum and then something else you do and then you drive even more momentum and then you just keep doing that. Which is why like it's based around a calendar and product drops and things, but yeah. So I think it's like brilliant, honestly, that's how you guys position the product.
in that context, Zach, did those sales decline over time? Like, did you kind of peak and then see a slow decline on that, or was it just
that product by far is still like always outperformed absolutely everything and was also our highest margin product because it was just print on demand art. Okay. The entire business started to decline when they released like Facebook page score thing in like, I guess that's like probably late 2019. And we had a few products that we just had really bad logistics on. And so when Facebook page score came out, I think it was like anything less than 3 out of 5, you started paying more on a CPM basis. And then anything less than 1, your ad account got banned. And I think we when it got released, we were at 2.9. And then like all of my attention just went to like trying to hack Facebook page score. And I think when like we shifted our attention to being like, we're trying to fix this thing rather than fix the product is when like the business started to like really decline. Okay. And then I like had like the largest realization, which was like, I hate this business. I only like money. And like when the business started declining, I was like, I didn't even want to work on it. Like it wasn't even like a problem I wanted to solve. Like it was like, I don't like resonate with these customers at all. I really don't care about even solving this problem. And so like, that's when like me and my partner were like, hey, let's get rid of this. Cause like neither of us even wanted to fix it, like it was like, we were done.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like Danilo here or get too philosophical, but I think that what you were describing before, Rashab, is the natural distribution of pretty much everything that's in competition. Most businesses fail. Most products fail. There's just a Pareto principle, a Matthew principle, that some things do very well and I don't want to say die, that might be dramatic, but most other things die or fail in the competition. And the same thing's true with ads. Like it's just not a strategy. I mean, it's definitely a circumstance that some brands will launch, have incredible businesses, have like one ad, and it just makes the business. But normally you get there through iteration, right? It's not normally the first product that you launch that hits a home run, right? Or the first ad.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. It's been a little while, and we've had the tariffs now like have impact and go away, and who knows what the most recent status is. But how have you guys seen that flow through to like the customers you serve? And I'm happy to share what we're seeing, but I'm just curious what you guys are seeing.
For us, I'd say zero like call out direct. I think agencies are like, hey, we're maybe pulling back, but they're like still servicing clients, and so like they're still whatever using it. But like yeah, maybe their team kind of contracted a little bit. Um, but then I've also talked with like people serving like direct stores, and they're like, yeah, like no, we've had churn with like the number one reason being like, oh, like our numbers are different, and
Yeah.
this is getting cut. But for us, luckily, like hasn't been like a meaningful thing.
Yeah, for us, it's hard to know exactly because I think for every person that says that they're churning for that reason, there's probably others that didn't say it but are, right? It's not a massive number that have said that they're churning for that reason, but I can tell like churn numbers are higher, and some are calling it out specifically, and they're just saying like, hey, we're we're canceling because of tariffs, or they're coming and asking for discounts. That's another one.
That's what I was going to ask if you guys were getting that, because I remember when I was running a company during COVID, and then it was like, oh, email everybody asking for discounts, and I probably spent a week like emailing everything, like phone bill, everything, and like I literally just did that. And so I'm wondering if this is like another thing where people are like, okay, like this is an opportunity to ask for discounts.
Yeah, we definitely have had people asking for that. To be honest, though, like on the no side in particular, our prices are so low. We basically have said like, hey, let's just help you do more instead of giving you a discount. And then most people have been pretty good about that. But yeah, I think it's not like massive numbers. I have seen though less people wanting to sign up for software, so that's been interesting. Like like new business has been harder to come by, and I think it's largely because of that. And I mean, I shouldn't say I think, I know based on conversations that a lot of companies are saying like, hey, yeah, I'm really interested in this thing, but we've been told, especially when you're like working with a large organization where it's a team within the company that's going to be using one of our pieces of software, there's a lot of conversation about, hey, we want to use this, but we've been told to pause for 60 days or 90 days until we have more information.
Exactly. Dude, this is exactly right. I mean, first of all, I think that like the particular segment that it has the highest impact on happens to be like the segment that most ecom SaaS operators glorify, which is like this like 10 to $200 million ecom businesses. But when you're in that scale, like I think what most people don't realize is that's actually the highest stress part of any brand's journey, because your inventory cash tie up is so high when you're scaling in that period, right? Like before that, you don't have these like really stressful cash conversion problems. And then once you get past that, then you can like negotiate with suppliers, and there's like a lot of other things you can do to like manage the cost of capital against the inventory. But exactly in that segment is where you have like these really stressful capital situations. That's one thing that I like fully appreciated as a consequence of how this has like flown through essentially. And then the other thing I appreciated is, yeah, like many of the best CEOs are, as a consequence of the tariffs, whether independent of the impact, they are saying, hey, the job this year is not necessarily to grow, it's just make sure that we don't shrink. And so then I think that the way that that plays out is you correctly don't necessarily buy new software, like you do all these sorts of things in order to like make sure you get to a period of higher certainty with respect to both consumer sentiment and the tariffs. And then once you get past that, then you like reignite basically. And that's like really how it's showing up. And what's fascinating is that when you talk to the CEO, you hear that clarity, but when you talk to someone on their team, it's not as obvious all the time. And so like the team member may just say like, hey, the business is prioritizing other things. But in reality, the reason for the reprioritization, Jeremiah, like what you were saying, is that there's this thing that's happening. And so then the savvy operators are changing how they approach like the rest of the year, basically. And I find it like actually very interesting. Like I feel like, I mean, it's going to cause like some short-term stress for us, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's fine. But I'm like learning a lot about the savviness of like this kind of business. Like, what does it really take to operate this kind of business?
Yeah. And we're doing the same thing too. I mean, I would guess this is true for me and it's probably true for you all. The percentage of our budget that goes to SaaS, I would say, is significantly higher than the brands that we serve. We spend a lot on SaaS. And so we're going to the people that we work with too and saying like, hey, can we change the plan we're on? Is there a different approach here? Are there, unused seats in our support ticketing solution, all kinds of things like that, where it's like, hey, if there's a way for us to cut, we don't necessarily want to cancel the relationships we have, but if we can cut 5, 10, 20% on something, it's meaningful, or just like not go sign up for something else and use the thing that we have today.
I do that on the first of every month. It's one of my favorite things to do, because like I literally look at it as making money, and I have a Google sheet and I try to beat my last month. This month is the best month I've ever had, because like we renegotiated like our intercom contract and like a bunch of like the bigger ones. For us on intercom, we were paying for this thing that we were not using, and the only thing that we're losing now is like our logo on the intercom chat, and it's like saving $17,000 a year. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like, and it's just like I get a lot of joy from just like optimizing those like things, because they do just like get out of control over it. Like
yeah, totally. And that's why you're a good bootstrapper.
Yeah.
The mindset of limiting waste might be more important than the act of it, right? If you're approaching things with the idea that, for every dollar that I'm putting in over some reasonable period of time, it's going to be well spent, then you're building a business that scales. You approach it the other way, it can still work. I've seen a lot of like very reckless founders, but I think that those reckless founders sometimes expose themselves to a lot bit more risk. I have like a really small surface area on brands that are, struggling with the tariffs. But it seems to be completely bipolar, right? Some brands are like panicking and everything is really bad. And then some brands are like, we figured it out. It's fine. We're not affected.
I mean, for some people it's meaningful. Like, I have a friend that had a ship in China, and then at the time the ship left, I think his tariff bill was like $700,000. And then by the time it got to America, like they did the cut and it was like $200,000. So it's like, it's not nothing, and it's like along that time, like how do you not be like a little bit anxious when there's like that level of swing?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the biggest thing that it's going to do is it's going to prevent you from making the next order.
Yeah.
This is like this is where like the savviness of like thinking through all of those cash dynamics and all of that sort of stuff. Like I didn't fully appreciate those things because we're like all the way at the front end, right? But like now I'm like learning more and more as I spend more time with some of the CEOs of these businesses, and I'm like, man, like you guys really have to be like financial engineers, basically.
It's smart to be cautious when there is uncertainty, even if the thing that's causing the uncertainty isn't directly impacting you, just because you don't know what can come as kind of the fallout effects from that uncertainty.
I feel like founders, operators, CEOs in these seats are in a few different camps. They're in, we can't do anything about it and we're fucked, right? We're going to have to pay the bill and that's it. And some of them are just like, we figured it out. And I've had like brief conversations with a couple of my friends that run big brands, and they're like, yeah, we're not worried. We're totally okay, right? And that's really interesting. So, along the lines of a savvy operator, a savvy CEO, I think that's who it is. Right? Don't get me wrong. You might be in the camp where there's nothing you can do about it. And, let's hope it's not game over, but it's a tricky game to play, right? But then there is another camp that is just like, they're not in that situation and they've actually figured out a solution. A couple that I heard was one is just getting their supplier to handle everything. They have just stopped taking inventory and their suppliers are now shipping directly to their customers, and it's not costing them that much more. It's like 10% more. They just outsourced solving the problem to their supplier. How awesome is that? And they just don't think about it anymore, right? So, I mean, not everyone's going to be able to do that. I don't know, if you manufacture coal plungers, that might not be something that your business can do. But for some businesses, it seems like it's saving them some headaches.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah,
We're wrapping it up.
let's do it.
I think we called it. I think this is it.
All right. I'll see you guys.
All right. See y'all.
Isn't it?